Hi everybody, thank you for joining us for our virtual Trust Talk series. Behind me, you've probably seen our panelists line up. In just a few minutes, I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves. But first, I wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Casey Hunter. I'm our Business Services Manager here at Bbb. And so today we put together a panel to talk all about lead generation for business. And our panelists all have a few different perspectives to bring to the table. Before we jump into that, I wanted to throw in a few housekeeping items just so you kind of know what's going on in the flow. During the panel today, once we do our introductions, we will kick off with questions. I'm sitting actually kind of further back, and so you may not be able to hear me. I will pop the questions into the chat. As you have questions throughout the event that you may want to be asking our panelists, feel free to put yours there as well. We ask that you do please stay muted so that everybody can hear and all those good things. When we get to the Q&A at the end, if you wanted to actually pop up and unmute yourself and ask your question, I'm perfectly okay with that. But without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and kick off. And I'm going to let our panelist Brad start off with his introduction, and then we'll work our way over. And yeah, let's go. So Brad, take it away.
Casey, thanks a lot, and just like to thank the BBB for inviting us to participate. As Casey said, my name is Brad Willis. I own a insurance agency here in town, and had it about 11 years. Spent about 19 years on the corporate side, working in claims and underwriting and customer service. And Casey invited me to participate. I think we each have kind of a different mode of operation or approach. Some of it may be similar, but some different. And she asked me to participate regarding the building of relationships and marketing of business with that approach. So that's me.
Great, thank you, Brad. Kirsten, we'll go ahead and start with you next. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Land. I am the owner of Land Enterprises Roofing Company. We specialize in residential roofing. We do roof replacement, repairs, and we have a roof maintenance program. Our company was started in 1986 by my late husband, Brian Land. And our main source of lead generation is referrals. And over the years, it's changed some. But it is still our preferred source of lead generation. So I'll be talking about that today. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Kirsten. And last but certainly not least, Tabbi, tell us a little bit about you and your unique spin on lead gen for business.
Hi, I am Tabbi Burwell. I am the Executive Director for the Craft Brewers Association of Oklahoma. I am on week 4 of the job. My background is I've been doing PR and marketing for the last 15 years. Most recently, I worked for the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau for 6.5 years, where majority of my work was media relations, working with influencer campaigns. I'll be talking a little bit about that today, about how you can think a little bit differently with your lead generation through different concepts. So could it be an influencer campaign or different PR campaigns that you can work on?
Great, thank you, Tabbi. Okay, we are going to start off with our first question, and I know it may be hard to hear me. Again, I'm going to type the questions in the chat box, so feel free to look at those there. But we are going to kick off with Kirsten again. If you could tell us about your approach to lead generation, how you've adjusted and restructured your process through the years. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as I mentioned in my introduction, when my late husband started the company, he started by getting referrals from people. And as his business grew and his reputation increased, he would receive referrals, from people people that trust you, people we go to church with, things like that. As our business grew, we need to find another way to get more of those referrals. So my husband was invited to a networking group. And in that group, you have different people who represent different companies. And so through that process, he learned how to give referrals to other people and then how to receive those referrals and to build that trusting relationship. And so that worked great. And then through that, he started going to networking groups. And so we joined some of the chambers in the area, like at the Edmond Chamber. We'd start going to networking events and started really getting to know people and people get to know us. And so we became a trusted source to give referrals and then a trusted source to receive those referrals. Then as time went on and we had a family, with the roofing industry, it can be up and down. We didn't really want to rely on a hailstorm to keep us in business. So we had to think, what could we do? So what we ended up doing was creating relationships with strategic partners. And those are people who have other businesses that you just have a natural fit with that could refer business to you, and you can refer business back to them. And so our main people that we do referrals with would be realtors, insurance agents, home inspectors, and then property managers. And so for an example, with a realtor, they're helping their homeowner, and then the property inspector flags an issue with the roof. So we come in, we take a look at it, we tell them if something needs to be done, and then we quickly try to take care of it for them so they can get to that closing table on time. So that's how we've adapted and adjusted through the years.
Great. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Brad, we want to ask you the same question. Tell us about your approach to lead gen and how you've adjusted or restructured that through the years.
Sure, be happy to. The approach of building my agency has been based on my prior skill set, knowledge, developed over that 19 years of working in the industry on the corporate side. When I took my leap of faith, and when I call it my leap of faith, I was 45 and walked away from a pretty decent salary. I had 2 kids getting ready to start college. And the next day, after retiring from the corporate side, I was making nothing. So there was a little motivation there. But what I did was I opened up the agency based on that knowledge and experience. And my business motto from day one has been building relationships on trust and respect. Building those relationships in the community, in associations, and in the networking world. I look at networking as building relationships. It's not networking is so associated with sales, which we're in the business of selling, but. And again, the lead generation, I don't look at it as in that fashion. I look at it as creating ambassadors, and that's how we, the focus of building those relationships is building the relationships with the ambassadors. And in regard to what has worked, what it hasn't worked, I believe in keeping it simple and building it on strengths and what drives you, what your passions are. Monitoring the growth of the agency. We added team members along the way, added community partners, business associations to maintain and manage the growth while meeting the service expectations of our customers.
Fantastic. I'm not sure if they can hear me, but if you know Brad, you know he does that really well. So thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and move to question 2. I'm going to pop that in our chat. How should a business go about choosing the right approach for the right lead generation approach for their business? Panelists, when you're thinking about this, think about culture, industry, and attracting the right clients for the personality of your business. I would like everybody to answer this question. And Tabbi, since we haven't yet heard from you, tell us a little bit about kind of what you did as far as marketing and how that fell in line with your strategy.
Well, I think we're going to all touch on this a little bit, but I think the networking platform starts from the base. You need to get to know who you need to know. And I think that that's helped me a lot in the marketing strategy. So I used to do sales and marketing for UCO, and one of my tasks was to market UCO as a wedding and meeting venue. You don't think of having your wedding at the place you went to college, but I think the first thing for us to think about was who's our audiences, who would be most able to, who would be most interested probably, and start at that level, and then move your way through. And so we knew we were an affordable option. We knew that we were attracting students, probably alumni. So I think figuring out that who is that base audience first, and then how do you market to them appropriately? Networking in the community with other people who are doing similar things to you, because they have a lot of great ideas. And then I think, for us, it was trying to find that sales point of what makes us different than others and what would you pay for. So I think you just have to find the right ways that set you apart to help pull that sell in.
Great, thank you, Tabby. And again, I don't know how much of my commentary everybody can hear, but Tabby's going to touch on a little bit more about how she did that in previous roles and some different ways that a business can look and really take a deeper look at what they're doing and really optimize who they have on their team. We'll go ahead and go with Kirsten on the same question, if you could touch on that.
I think what Tabby said makes a lot of sense and definitely great advice. And I think another thing to think about too is just about who your client is, who is your best customer, and where are you going to find those people. For us, and also thinking about what your strengths and weaknesses are as the business owner. So in the case of like my husband, he was very friendly. Everyone was his best friend. He loved building relationships. So for him, a natural fit was the referrals. But you can set up your business in the way that best fits you. And a good example that I can give you is one of my competitors, roofing company. They are completely based on knocking on doors, and they have a very successful business doing that. My company model does not do that. So our fit is building the relationships with strategic partners, meaning timelines of our strategic partners. But you can have two successful companies set up differently based on what your strengths are and what you enjoy doing.
Thank you. Brad, same question.
Just to piggyback off what Kirsten mentioned, going about choosing the right approach. I think from an entrepreneur and business owner, I went off my strengths, personal and professional strengths. If I tried to start up my business and develop and grow my business based on managing a call center, managing the internet leads, I would have failed 10 years ago. So knowing yourself and where your strengths are will help you succeed. And my industry, there's a lot of folks that will sell a lot more insurance than I do, make a lot more money than I do. And they're very good at maybe doing those things, managing those call centers and internet leads and generating as many quotes as possible. Building relationships takes a lot of time and effort, and you got to be very strategic in doing so. So that's been our approach, and it's been successful.
Thank you, Brad. We'll go ahead and move on to the next question. And Brad, I'm going to pick on you again for this one. How could a business pull apart and analyze their day-to-day activity and utilize them in a way to create excitement or chatter about their business? And the reason I wanted to talk about this question is because you sell insurance, which isn't typically super exciting. So how do you get people excited about that? What are some strategies that you've used to get people talking?
Well, very high priority there in our office is we educate and protect. If there's anything that we sell ourselves. So as Casey mentioned, insurance is very lackluster. There's a lot of things out there, buying jewelry, shoes, clothes, cars that are a lot more exciting than insurance. In fact, most consumers know very little about the insurance, and most folks don't like insurance. And so I try and differentiate myself in the fact that the educational portion and the service portion are our priorities. It's not the volume of sales that really get us motivated. So taking that approach, I think the art of communication is priority. Active listening is a necessity, and that's in building the right team, creating those ambassadors, and community partners, building a strong reputation of trust and respect. And we've got a few things listed here. You got to be present and active. When you're involved in community, like like chambers, the BBB. You can't just show up once and become a member and expect things to happen. You gotta invest time. You gotta be willing to invest time in others. I have an old adage that my team kind of still chuckles at, but I go out and have coffee talks. I learn about people and what motivates them, what their needs are, and try and focus on that. Not, if I went to those coffee talks and talked about insurance, I wouldn't be having coffee talks because nobody would want to go join me and talk about what their needs are. They would think, oh, you're just going there to sell me insurance. That's how we try and differentiate. We're not calling people and saying, hey, can I give you a quote? We're going to meetings and visits and identifying what drives them, what's important to them. And about 3 or 4 years into start having my agency, I was handed a book, and the title of the book is called The Go-Giver. And the description of the book is really how I do and what I do, how I develop my business. And what I'd like to do, if it's all right with Casey, is maybe just take a couple seconds and read the cover insert of the book. Because it does a lot better job of describing, that business approach than I do. So if I could just take a few minutes, or hopefully just a few seconds. The insert on the book says, the Go-Giver tells a story of an ambitious young man named Joe who yearns for success. Joe is a true go-getter, though sometimes he feels as if the harder and faster he works, the further away his goals seem to be. Desperate to land a key sale at the end of a bad quarter, he seeks advice from a legendary consultant referred to by many of his peers as simply the chairman. Over the next week, he introduces Joe to a series of go-givers, a restaurant owner, a CEO, a financial advisor, a real estate broker, and the connector who brought them all together. His friends teach Joe the 5 laws of stratospheric success and help him open himself up to the power of giving. Joe learns that challenging his focus from getting to giving, put others' interests first, and continually add value to their lives, ultimately leads to unexpected returns. So that, in my eyes, kind of sums it up pretty good. So, and I would say, my agency, we buy a couple dozen a year, just kind of share them. So if anybody hasn't read it, they're interested, they're welcome to come by.
Great, thank you, Brad. And yes, he does. He has given me a copy, and I am working through it right now. So I appreciate that. Thank you. We're going to go to the next question. I think you answered that perfectly. Thank you. This one I'm super excited about because I want to pick on Kirsten and Tabbi both, but something that made me really excited as I was researching and doing and developing these questions is I want to know, when it comes to businesses using social media and digital platforms to market and advertise, what techniques, strategies, and tools can they use to strengthen their visibility? And I'm going to start with Kirsten because, like I said, I did a little research, and Kirsten does a really awesome blog that talks about roofing, and I want you to go into that along with some of the other strategies and techniques you use.
Okay, great. So yes, as she mentioned, we do have a blog. I started 8 years ago because for me, the social media, it's not about getting a customer. It's about someone who's been referred to us and they want to make sure that we're legit. I'm sure all of you are aware that contractors don't really have the best reputation. So I wanted to make sure that our social media showed that we are a legitimate company, that we do know what we're doing. So everything is about establishing that legitimacy. So by having a website, having the blog, being on social media platforms, we chose platforms that we feel like our key customers are in, and posting regularly. And so the blog that I started writing and been doing for many years is just taking topics that I think homeowners are interested in, things like maybe about ventilation and just short nuggets of information to show, here's some things to think about if you're getting a new roof. Here's some ways to look for a contractor. And then as we've developed our relationship with strategic partners, then sometimes I write blogs that may relate to an insurance agent or might be of interest to a realtor to help their customers. So it's just about getting out there. So I do 2 blog posts a month, and I hired a service, some great friends who have a wonderful online marketing company. And so they help me with that every single month and making sure it comes out, looks good. We look at it about 2 months ahead of time. So we did October. You're thinking about, okay, what do people want to know maybe about roofing in October? Maybe people want to know, can you roof when it's cold? So we talk about those kinds of things. And so if it's 10 o'clock at night and someone said, hey, you should call land, we're not open, you can at least see, yeah, they're on the web, they are there, we're active, and they are legitimate and know what they're talking about. So that's been our main focus.
And let me add to that just by saying it's something that surprised me when I was finding you online, and that was something that I found pretty quickly was your blog. So that comes back to the excitement and something new and different, and I think that's kind of something that set your business apart. So thank you. Tabbi, same question for you. You managed a team and did all of this, so tell us about some of the techniques and strategies you've used.
Yeah, for us, I would say with having a team, and we're kind of all over the place. So that could be social media team. We're also doing content. We have videographer. We're trying to kind of hit all of the buckets. We really utilize content calendars. And so at least every quarter, we were planning our content out, and we knew what we were talking about, what was needed. Did we need a video for that? What kind of content were we planning for? And a little bit unlike Kirsten, our content, we always wanted to come back. We want to get people back to our site. The more people time on site, the more return I feel like you're going to get from your business. And so we were creating content with links. I was always coming back to maybe another page to our site, listing on our site, ways to keep that audience engaged on your site. And maybe from a B2B perspective, you were going to create a sell there. Maybe you were going to create an action that they were going to be able to do. I think 2 other strategies, and I talked about this a little bit, was influencer marketing. And you can work with people who look and feel like your audience to be the networkers and be the engagers doing the job for you, because maybe you have a small team. And then you can also work with other things, like make sure you're getting referrals for your Facebook page. When people have visited, maybe have them check in. Is that Yelp because you have a restaurant? Is that Google reviews? I think all of that can come back and help push that social for you and what people are looking on online. It's going to only strengthen your business. I think too, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Tailwind. If you're doing social media and Pinterest is a good platform for you, if women are a target audience for you, we have a local company here called Tailwind that helps track a lot of your what you're pushing out on Pinterest and help you maximize links back to your site. And so if you're creating blogs or you're creating web content, you can ultimately push that content out on Tailwind, and they're helping you figure out the best hashtags to use. So what are people following, how to get more traffic on that, how to get more eyes on that, how to get more traffic to your site. And the reports that they give you are great in tracking, like, where is that coming from? So you get to know a little bit more of the audience that you might not be diving into more of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This one comes back into how we're going to track the success of our processes. So how can a business owner track the success of their lead gen process? What platforms, software, or tracking systems have you used or you might recommend using? Kirsten, we'll start off with you since we just had Tabbi answer. So tell us some ways that you look at your data and how you analyze it.
So we have a CRM that we use. So when someone calls in to schedule an appointment, we're already taking down information. And one of the questions we always ask is, how did you hear about us? And we go ahead and mark that down. And we make sure we keep track of that so we can look and see where we're spending our time and how that is, working for us. One thing that we have done is we've worked with Angie's List in the past, and they've been wonderful. And we've always been a super service award. But as time went on, we noticed that wasn't working as well for us anymore. Some of the things that they had changed wasn't working. So we ended that relationship, but it was so great when it was working for us. It brought in people. So that was, but sometimes things change. And so it's very important to constantly be monitoring that so you can see and making sure if you are making an investment like we were in Angie's List, and you can see, well, that investment's not paying off anymore. But it might, work for someone else, but right now it wasn't working for us. So that's just how we've been tracking those things and just making sure if we're going to networking events, are we utilizing our time the best? Are we connecting with people and following up on that? So it just helps us to track what we're doing.
Perfect, Kirsten. Thank you. Tabby, same question, but down a marketing rabbit hole, which I'm sure we could get into and talk about for days and days because there's so much software out there. Just tell us about some of the things that you've used and you found really successful.
Well, I think I'll start with, if you're a team that doesn't have a lot of money and you feel like, I don't know how to track my successes, if you're on Facebook and you're doing any type of Facebook advertising or marketing, it can be very affordable for you, but there's also really good reporting tools that are free. So I would encourage you to utilize those. One program that we used quite often in my last job was Sprout Social. Sprout Social allowed us to really track people talking about Oklahoma City, but you could really garner it for any audience. So if it's roofing, it could be, is people talking about, are people talking about land? Are they talking about needing roofs? What is it that's what's the sentiment that's happening around that? But you can engage with that when you're not even being asked. And so Sprout Social is a really good platform. It's very affordable. The reporting tools are wonderful. I would say a good CRM, if you have a CRM, to be able to track those leads, track the people you're trying to keep up with. And then I think becoming good friends with your accounting office. If you are the accounting office, learn to be good friends with yourself. But I would say, like, get to know where those sales are coming in and what kind of money we're generating and where, and trying to figure out where is that money coming from, so you're able to track the success on your end. From a PR standpoint, that's very hard because PR is a little bit harder to track. But from a marketing standpoint, was it social media? Do we know that we're having clicks back to our website from Facebook? That sort of thing. And then you can kind of go from there and diving into those analytics.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to move along to the next question, and we'll start with Kirsten on this one, and then we're going to go to Brad. The reason I wanted to start with Kirsten is because you mentioned something in your last question about how you had used other things in the past and then reevaluated. So when a business is reevaluating their overall sales and lead generation process, how would you recommend they pull apart that process? Who should be a part of that planning? And then how often should a business do it?
Well, for us, we're meeting once a week with our team, specifically with our sales team and other members, and we're talking about what went well. So the jobs that we sold, the contracts we got, or the jobs we completed, what went well with that, and figuring out why that went well. And then we're also looking at the job that we didn't get, or the job that didn't go well, why didn't it? And so we're trying to look for a trend. So that way we know we're spending our time on the right thing. So is it that we took on a job that we shouldn't have? Is this something that was just a one-off kind of weird thing that went wrong? Or is this something that we're doing that needs to be tweaked? And so we're constantly evaluating that every week, sometimes individually, sometimes as a group, so we can be aware of that. I do work with a business coach that also helps me to stay on track with the team. My team also attends weekly sales training, and then I attend management training, and that way we're staying fresh and we're always, sharpening the sword, if you will, making sure that we're doing, those things well. But it's about making sure that if you're making a change, that it really is needed. It's not just because one thing went wrong and then you want to fix it with a Band-Aid, so you jump over. And I've been very guilty of that. And my team has to remind me from time, no, okay, this was just one time. It's not a reoccurring problem. So being able to have the wisdom to slow down, take a breath, and really analyze what's going on. And we are changing some things at my office. And so for us, I don't change. We may look at things on a regular basis, but I'm not doing a lot of changing. But we've been in business now for over 30 years. And so we're looking at some changes that we're making just now. So I think it's how you run your business and what you feel comfortable with. But I think if you're keeping track of it on a regular basis, having conversations, and then you'll know what you need to do and how you need to do that with the team.
Thank you, Kirsten. Brad, same question for you.
But I think you got to put it in writing first. You just talk about it and wing it, because then the accountability and the understanding can be lost in the whirlwind of business and life. But once you document the outline of the process, including factors such as personnel, time, cost, assets, I think it's important. Communication is a priority, and the only way you can succeed in that is get everybody on the same page. So I presented to my entire team, and we take that skeleton, that outline, and have everybody just beat it up. Add to it, take away, what they see, because they're part of that equation. And it's important for everybody to be on the same page or things get lost. So once that foundation is beat up, then you come back together and then redraw that foundation. You have that set. And once that's set, I think it's, business is ever evolving, especially nowadays. Things change so fast today compared to 30 years ago when I started in the insurance industry. So you've got to keep up with the Joneses, or you want to get in front of the Joneses, so you have the greatest opportunity for your business to succeed. After developing that picture, you break it down, you go out and test it, you reevaluate it, you report and adjust. And in regard to how frequently you do that, we felt comfortable doing it on a quarterly basis, and then kind of a deep dive about November, planning for that next year.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, Kirsten, how have you shifted that process to be successful online?
So Zoom has been a great tool. I know some people probably are tired of Zoom, but when we weren't allowed to meet face to face, that was a great way for me to meet with my team, a great way for me to have individual meetings with people that I wanted to either strengthen my relationship or get to know better. Also, the networking groups that I'm in, they went to the Zoom, which was great because we could still keep doing business, still keep moving forward, still connecting with each other. The main thing is with the Zoom is that you want to be engaged. You want to have that camera on, not just have your picture there. You want people to know that you're really there and you're listening, and they can see you interacting with them. And so I think it's a challenge to have to go to that, but it's also been a blessing because you can still stay connected with people. And then now that things are starting to come back in person, if I can go to something safely in person, then I will. And so it's just important to keep those relationships going and letting people know you're there.
It's been fun, and we've all learned a lot. I'm sure I can speak for everybody in the past few months. Tabbi or Brad, do you guys have anything to add to that? Any tools or ideas?
I think in the virtual world, I'm a little old-fashioned, so that's why I have my team, Brandon and Amber, focus more on the virtual world. But from my vantage point, I think it's important to bring value when interacting in that platform, not come across salesy. Would be discarded, or if there's an email, it'd be deleted really quick. So I think bringing the value on that platform is of most importance.
Right, and that's part of your mantra, if you will, building relationships on trust and respect, and you definitely do that each day, so we appreciate that. Now we're going to pick on Tabbi again. You mentioned this a little bit earlier about influencer marketing. What are some ways that you've used influencer marketing or ideas on how businesses could use influencer marketing to achieve their goals? Tell us about that.
Well, I have had the pleasure of probably working on about 150 to 300 influencer campaigns, primarily in the last 6 years, because it's become so popular. I will say, I think thinking outside the box has been what's been most rewarding. I'm going to give you some examples of campaigns that I've done or campaigns that I've pitched. And you can probably think about it from your perspective. I'll start small with, there may be a beauty blogger in town and you might be a company that doesn't work with beauty at all. But out of the 11,000 followers that person might have, they may be looking for something that you have to offer. And so great example is Philharmonic was looking for increasing their sales and how do we get more people to come to a show? So identifying some influencers in our community or outside of our community that might be affecting your audience or an audience that you want to reach. You could offer them the ability to work with you, help you sell tickets, and they get a small portion of that sell. So let's say the ticket's $100 and for every $100, they get 10. That's a way of enticing them to keep talking about your brand and your event. And there's a benefit to them. So you become partners with them. Another big minded project that I worked on with the new convention center coming in town is that Oklahoma City was moving into a completely new tier for meeting planners. And we often were oversaw by this audience. They didn't know what there was here. Why would they come to Oklahoma City? And so I worked with an influencer out of Tennessee who understood meetings, understood tourism, but had a great following and a great reach for us. And we thought outside of the box of how could we put Oklahoma City in front of meeting planners, but treated them completely different. Let's treat them like they're a normal human that's maybe planning vacation or they just had no idea about what there was to expect in our city. And so we created a series of 3 years of content with this influencer that we targeted on social platforms and other areas that the planner wouldn't necessarily feel like they were being targeted, like a meeting planner, come to Oklahoma City. We had really good success with that. We built it out even bigger to bring in persona audiences. And so was that a foodie writer? Was that a family writer to talk about the different things? So we really circled it around things that were happening in Oklahoma City around maps projects, unexpected things that were happening. Really out of that, we became really great friends. And that influencer was then pitching Oklahoma City to other big major outlets on our behalf in a partnership that we did not pay for or have to, coordinate. It was just become this friendship that we developed. So I think there's opportunity to think outside of the box when it comes to influencer campaigns. Not all influencer campaigns have to be paid for. There is trade that can be associated there. But then I think you have to think about how do you get to their audience and why would you want to get to their audience? So it can work really well in your benefit. I'm always happy to help coach people through influencer campaigns, but I always suggest having some form of a contract and an idea of what you're going to offer them and what they're going to offer you.
And thank you, Tabbi. That was super high level. So I will make sure to share if you guys want to connect with Tabbi after to ask some questions about influencer marketing, because it really is interesting, some of the different things that she's done. And I think could be really beneficial to local businesses if they wanted to implement something like that or kind of mimic that. So thank you, Tabbi. That was a great question and a great answer. Is there something, and this question is for Brad, is there something in your lead generation process that you wish you would have done differently or implemented sooner?
Definitely. And that's growing my team before I needed to grow my team and bringing on new team members. Our focus is on service to our customers, but and we, I feel like we've had a high level of success in, but it's almost, I haven't had any real red flags, but almost disappointing in the fact that it would have been exciting to see how much more we could have grown if we would have brought those team members on, instead of waiting 12 to 18 months, do it now. And where we would have been today. So if there's one thing I would say is always be ready to hire and hire before you think you need to.
Great, thank you, Brad. Kind of grow into it then.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Kirsten or Tabbi, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was a great answer. Yeah, I agree.
Perfect. All right, we will move to question 10, and then we will open up the room for questions from our audience. how has, and this question is for anybody to answer, everybody's on this one, how have you evaluated your sales or marketing goals to fit the capacity and capability of your current business model? How do you evaluate an increase of clients or projects for your business while maintaining the same level of service? Who wants to go first?
I will, I guess.
All right, Kirsten, take it away.
So for us, it's really about creating a balance. Some of the main things that we do is we want to be out helping customers, evaluating their roofs, letting them know if they need our service or not. We want to be networking and strengthening, creating new relationships and strengthening the ones that we have. And then we want to be, filling ourselves with education, sharpening that sword, as I said earlier, learning. So it's really the balance of those three, which can be challenging. Because if you're just only helping customers and you're not networking or trying to bring in more business, then what happens is all of a sudden you find yourself without as much work. And so then you have to hurry and do a whole bunch of networking. So we want to make sure it's a balance of our time and effort. And that's not always easy, but you have to figure out on your team who has the capacity to do what. Someone may have a capacity to do a lot more roofing inspections than another one. Someone may have a more capacity to do more networking than another one. So you just want to kind of balance that out with your team members. And then, of course, if we get hit with a hailstorm, then that's a whole different story. That's just months of exhaustion, but we want to help people. But we try to, when there's not a hailstorm, just try to balance out our time and always be working on the way we're communicating with our customers, the way we communicate with each other, how we're serving those clients, and then how we're serving our strategic partners.
Perfect, Kirsten. Tabbi, do you have anything to add for marketing?
I would say from a PR standpoint, everything is very measurable. So going into a year, knowing exactly what our goals are, and do you check on those quarterly, halfway through the year, to achieve them. If we hit a halfway point and we're not there, for me, it's pitching more media stories and getting more coverage. It's writing more content to get more people to click on it, to go back to your website. It's whatever those goals are that we have set aside. I think everyone's going to be a little bit different in this and how it fits your model and what works best. But I think making measurable goals is top priority, because you can never base it off, if you want to reach 10% more goals, if you aren't hitting that, you need to think about what are the other ways that I can get there. And I think going back and looking at those numbers it gives you a report every year or every quarter, whatever it is, to do better. And how do we constantly strive for better?
Thank you. Perfect. Brad, well, we started off with a bang. Let's finish with a bang. You have anything to add there?
You need to raise the bar a little bit. I believe in keeping it simple, and we've had, and it's not so much goals, but maybe at a higher level, we've set priorities. And the number one priority is service to our customers. And I've told my customers, and I've told my team, that if a claim happens, my customers have my cell phone. They are encouraged to call me. If they call the office, anytime I get a call in regard to a claim, my desk clears until that claim is where I expect it to be at the end of that conversation. And having 13 years in the claims world, I'm able to share that experience. But I'm not licensed as a claim representative, and I'll tell them I can't settle. I'm not going to be writing the check. I can't settle the claim. That's for my claims team to do. But that's priority number one. Priority number two is develop and strengthen relationships. Create those ambassadors and those community partners. So 1 + 2 = 3. You do those two things, and developing customers will happen.
Perfect. Thank you. So we are now going to open the floor up for questions, or the virtual room, however you want to talk about it. Okay, we do have the first question. This is from Brendan Willis, and I think this question is for you, Tabbi. Where have you found your influencers?
It's a great question. So I am kind of crazy and get on Instagram and find a lot of them that way. It was before the world of where I could afford a platform. There's a platform that I use called GroupHigh, GroupHigh. Very affordable compared to many of the others that are out there. And it would let me source, if I'm looking for an influencer that talks about food, I could put food in, and I could put what platform I'm looking for them on, what kind of following I'm looking for. I think too, what's important though is it doesn't fill out those ones that buy the bots. And so part of my job was to, I had an algorithm of how do I determine what their content is on their site, how people are engaging with them, versus how many followers they have. And so I think you have to do that homework yourself. But GroupHigh helped save me on a lot of campaigns, and they also have a lot of tracking reports. So let's say I host somebody, we have a campaign, I can put all their content into GroupHigh, and it shows me what the engagements, the impressions, all the numbers that you need to go back and say it was worth our time to invest a week into this, invest $1,000 into this, whatever it is.
Great. Brendan had another question. Thank you. What are the lowest cost and highest cost scenarios you've experienced with influencers and the results from those?
A good question.
Yeah.
Man, they are all across the board. I will tell you, majority of what I did for Visit OKC was free. Luckily, I had at hand a lot of partners throughout the city that could help comp things. So that would be tickets to see a show at, the Civic Center, to a hotel that we were hosting them in, food that they were going to be eating in exchange for coverage. And we had everything very clear and concise of they had to do so many social media posts a day. They had to use our handle, the attraction handle. There was a lot of parameters for us to host. So we, I will say we didn't pay for many influencers in our city. So I'd say you can start at zero and see how you can leverage that. And I will say there are some ticket items, you would see some of them at $100,000. Some people want $5,000 just to post a picture on Instagram. It's very much across the board. I think a lot of influencers are willing to negotiate, and if you pay for this, we'll give you all these extra things. I think you always have to push back and see what kind of extra things you can get out of that campaign. I can say that if you pick the right people, they're going to bend over backwards for you, and they're going to want to do multiple campaigns, because once people start following them for promoting your product, they're going to want to keep talking about that product so that there's some trust and other things built there. So the more that you can do long-term with that person and say, hey, we're doing a 3-year campaign with you, let's knock the price down quite a bit, the more advantage you have.
Perfect. Thank you. Super interesting. Not something I have much experience in at all, so it's really cool. Yeah. He said thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions about Legion? We do. Okay. We have another question from Taylor Connell. She's with Polston Tax. For Brad, about how many coffee meetings do you strive for in a month when trying to balance building these relationships with contacts and also running operations within your business?
I would say pre-COVID, I was out of the office, visiting folks, meeting new folks, probably just 75 to 80% of the time. And that's a level that I had built up to. And prior to adding a team member, that may have been around 50%. But adding that team member helped spread the responsibilities and the focus on the customer. So I was able to get out more into the community.
Perfect. And those of you who have ever had a coffee meeting with Brad, he will also run into 5 other people he knows during that meeting. So that's always really fun. Okay, we have Amy popped on. She said, great questions. And then Kyle Golding looks like he wants to ask a question. And I think you're unmuted, Kyle, so have at it.
Thanks. I'll try to be quick because it's slightly complicated. I'll just give some background. It's about business ethics and how you use it to develop referrals and brand evangelist. So the part I have to explain is for Kirsten is, I don't know if you remember or not, but about 6 years ago, I had a local roofing company, my insurance company sent over that did a terrible job in our house, really essentially screwed us. And I knew Brian from business networking from the chamber and from Sandler, et cetera. And when I asked him for some help, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with the mess I was in. He never asked about roofing our house. He asked to help me fix the problem that I had with the other roofer. He was trying to get them to fix it first, and then when they refused, eventually we did hire Land, who did an amazing job, and you guys gave us a new roof that 5 years later is still awesome. But my question is, how much, and I love everyone's input on this, how much is a business owner or business leadership's ethics and dedication to your industry and to taking care of the consumer feed into the sales cycle process? Because Brian did a ton of work, including going to court with me for a full day where he received zero compensation, et cetera, just because he wanted me as the consumer to get what I deserve from the roofing company and the insurance industry. So how much of things like this go in your decision-making process when you're trying to decide how you do business with people and how that can ultimately refer to repeat customers, referrals, brand evangelists, et cetera? Because obviously I tell everyone who will want to listen not to do business with the other guys and always do business with Land Roofing.
Hi, Kyle. Yes, I do remember you, and thank you for sharing that story. You know, for Brian, was very important for both of us. Not to bring religion to it, but we happen to be Christians, and so for us, we felt like the way we ran our business was very important, that it was run in a Christian manner and that we cared for people. And if we knew we cared for enough people and took care of them, that would take care of us. And so that for us, it's always about doing the right thing. You know, a lot of times we do things on the roofing process that isn't necessarily required. For instance, like putting ice and water shield down. We do it because we know it's going to protect the home when we have those weird ice storms that Oklahoma sometimes gets, and you don't have a leak in the home. And so we will spend extra money to make sure that home is protected, because we don't want to have to go back out there. Even if we stand behind our warranty and we go out there, it's still in the back of someone's mind, well, but it caused the leak. And so we want to try to do everything we can to avoid that. So we always try to go above and beyond and take care of that customer, no matter, you know, what the cost. And because that was truly, for my husband, he truly had a servant's heart, as Dave Ramsey would say. And so that was important to him. And it's important to me as well as I carry on without him.
Perfect. Thank you, Kirsten.
Casey, can I add to that?
Yes.
I think all industries, but some industries, maybe such as insurance and roofing, create their own challenges. And I think Land Roofing and my agency, I know our approach is, you know, we want people to look favorably upon our industry, not negatively. So to turn that tide, you know, you have to have a high level of ethics and conduct business ethically, and that's when people reach out to you for help, or they I got a call yesterday. Frequently receive calls. A friend of mine and a customer had referred a family friend. She was, I think she had introduced herself and suggested that she was 80 years old or older, and I had some questions, concerns, a problem, and she thought I might try and sell her an insurance policy. Well, at the end of the 30-minute conversation, I was helping her where she was and asking her, answering questions, sharing information, and that 30-minute conversation, you know, I didn't sell a policy, and you know, I wasn't looking to. I was helping a friend.
I'll say from my end, hi Kyle, I know Kyle very well. I would say as the PR person that probably would hopefully work for a company like yours, I would respect the ethical background that you have and what you were able to do with Kyle, because working for an organization that's not ethical is very hard. The backlash that you will get, I'm sure the roofing company that helped him initially was awful. And if I know Kyle, maybe he put something out there on social and said, don't work with them, or wherever else he can put it. I've had the same situation happen. And I mean, from my wedding venue to my home builder, very bad experiences. And the first thing you do is you go out and tell people don't use them. And so as the PR person of all the businesses that are being ethical, you can't help but thank those people who are the owners and being ethical in their decision making and going above and beyond, because it helps you do your job a lot better.
So thank you all for attending our panel. I will include the contact information for our awesome panelists from today's event, and CC them on a follow-up email with a bunch of information, and also tell you about some upcoming Bbb events. We're doing a social media workshop in the month of September, and we have our monthly ambassador networking coffee. We would love for you to join us. Brad has attended a few times, and so maybe you'll see him there next month, and just shamelessly inviting him and telling him to come join us. So thank you so much for joining us, and again, clap, so thank you guys.